Welcome, everybody. It's Wednesday night, and that means we're here for another episode of Chaz Calenda, Attorney at Law, here on the Coalition Radio Network. As you know, I'm Chaz Calenda, and I am an attorney here in the state of Rhode Island at the law firm of Inman and Torgy in Coventry, Rhode Island. Here on Chaz Calenda, Attorney at Law, we've been tackling issues throughout the state and nationally of public interest and law, so we can bring you, the audience, a more informed point of view. And tonight, we're going to focus on some of the statewide races that are going on in the state of Rhode Island. And joining me tonight to help me discuss one of the statewide races is GOP candidate for Lieutenant Governor, Jeann Lugo. Jeann, welcome to the show. And I appreciate you coming on tonight to talk about your candidacy.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate you being here. And Jeann, so tell us a little bit about your background and what made you decide you were going to run for lieutenant governor of all positions.
All right. Well, I'll give you my little 2-minute spiel. It's again, my name is Jeann Lugo. I'm running for lieutenant governor. I am a migrant from Puerto Rico. I came here in 1992, and I came to Providence directly. I ended up in foster care in the DCYF system, and I ended up was living under a nice house with a lovely lady that was able to take care of me, who raised me who I am today. After that, I graduated high school, got a really good job down in Boston, and the job was a high-level manager for a security company. After that, I met my wife. We ended up having a family, and I later became a police officer.
I mean, I'd call that the American dream if I had to say it, other than the unfortunate having to go through the DCYF system. So you've seen some of the pitfalls of our what we're doing here with our children here in Rhode Island. Is that one of the issues that kind of jump started you in getting involved in politics?
Absolutely. So I back in the day when I was a child, DCYF was very tough. A lot of the kids there, even now, I believe DCYF has gotten worse. And that is something that I definitely, truly feel passionate about. When I was there, it almost felt hopeless, and I could see it in other kids' eyes. I could understand why these children want to be delinquents. They don't want to go to school. They just don't feel like they have any hope. In a state where hope is our motto, we're not giving it to our future leaders. And that's something that I truly feel that we need to do. And it's the same thing with our education system. Our education system is the worst in this country. We spend more per capita in this state than any other state in the union, and we have the worst test scores. We could also look at our homeless issues, and that's something that we have an issue that we need to solve. Homeless, our mental health crisis. These are the issues that I definitely want to concentrate on.
So yeah, you hit on a bunch of topics there, and let's try to take them one by one. One of the situations is the Rhode Island being so poorly ranked and so poor performing in the education system. In your opinion, in your experience, why do you think that is?
So I believe that this is something that I want to work on, and this is one of the reasons why I want to run specifically for lieutenant governor. I believe we need to do a hard audit on everything when it comes to our social services in this state. We spend a lot of money on, again, social services, on our schools. And I feel as though with all the money that being spent, I think we spend 52% of our budget on the school system. It's not going anywhere. And when I read, I haven't finished the John Hopkins report, but I'm starting to read it. And what I'm looking at is some of the money is going more, actually I should say most of the money is going to the overhead, and it's not going directly to the kids and to the teachers. I want to change that. The teachers are going in every single day, teaching our kids, teaching 24 kids at a time, uh, and they're teaching them in a really bad school. Some of the schools don't have proper heating, proper cooling. They are moldy, they're run down. We need to make sure that the money that we're investing in our school departments and DCYF are being used properly.
So it sounds like you're one of the individuals who believes that money that we're investing in our schools should be able to follow the student. Would that be a correct statement?
So that is correct, and that kind of goes to my whole thing. It's I believe that we need more than ever choices. The way the economy, the way that Rhode Island is run now is you only have one choice, or you have to have enough money to get your kid out of that system and put them in a private school. We want to give parents the option to do what they need to do, whatever best suits their family and their child, not the other way around. Money follows the child is most important. That is what I'm advocating for.
Oh, that's excellent. And I couldn't agree with you more on having parents having choices, people having choices, kids having choices, so they can get the best education possible. We're not just giving money to bloated union contracts or municipalities who are going to invest it in ways that are not assisting our children and helping our parents. Um, as Lieutenant Governor, if you were to be elected, how would you go about implementing the changes you're talking about?
So one thing is, and I'm sure it's been talked around for actually for years now, is the Inspector General. Clearly, right now, the Lieutenant Governor doesn't have any actual powers. It has influence, and it advocates for certain committees. There is like a small business committee that they do. They have other committees too, but I think that what we could do is we could take it a step further. One is I'm going to make a recommendation to the General Assembly to give Inspector General powers to the Lieutenant Governor. Make that seat, which is a $1.2 million budgeted office, make it actually do something. Let's investigate. Let's make it a bipartisan office for investigations. So that way the citizens of Rhode Island feel as though that they're not being cheated on. One of the things that when I meet people from other states is we're always known as a corrupt state. I don't want that I don't want Rhode Island to be known for that. So Inspector General is going to be it. I'm going to do a hard audit, whether I have Inspector General powers or not. I'm going to look at every single budget from DCYF to the school departments and see what options we could give the people.
I think it's a great idea. I mean, Rhode Island, many people have advocated for the role of an inspector general here in the state of Rhode Island that we currently just don't have. Obviously, we have the ability of law enforcement to be involved if we had to. The General Assembly clearly has a role that they've either abdicated or have taken very poor positions on. Um, we, we have the Attorney General who could be involved in these situations. How would you specifically, do you think that you would want to perhaps make recommendations to the General Assembly, to the governor, to the Attorney General? Are these things that you would ask the governor to allow you to perform or form, I should say, a task force perhaps to help you investigate these issues that you feel so strongly about?
So the John Hopkins report that again, and that I'm researching, it's they already have done a lot of the work, but I want to do it one more time and I want to get even more in depth. Doing a report does not require any power. So if I don't get the powers, if we can't get it put into the lieutenant governor position, we could still do a hard audit. And what we could do is take our findings and give some recommendations to one, the governor, two, the General Assembly, and three, to our local town leaders. And then we'll put it on their plate. This is what we found. I don't believe that we should be spending money in X, Y, and Z. And again, give them recommendations. Maybe look at our sister state, Massachusetts. When it comes to education, Massachusetts does an amazing job. They have really good test scores, and they're not spending more money than us per capita. So I would, again, do the audit and then give them, hey, look, this state does this. We should do something comparable. And if the politicians, either from the local towns, the governor or the General Assembly, if they refuse to, then the ball is on their court, and I will let the citizens of Rhode Island know that I did the best I can. It's up to them now. Point the finger at the politicians.
So it sounds to me like if you're in a situation where you're making a report or you're doing an investigation, whatever powers the lieutenant governor may have or may not have in that role, that if they don't do anything about it, if you find some deficiencies, and there are plenty to find, that you're going to use the bully pulpit of the lieutenant governor's office to make those findings known and kind of put the pressure on the people who need to have the pressure put on them. Am I gathering that right?
No, that is 100% right, because we don't want the inspector general or lieutenant governor to have that much power. We want them to have a certain amount. This is why I love America so much. We divide power. We have a judicial, we have a legislative, and an executive branch. This will be a form of that. We will do all the investigations. And if I end up having powers of an inspector general, such as subpoena powers, use it, do the best I can to do the good as an investigation, and then give it back. Let the people who are in power for legislative branch or the city council, let them actually make the changes themselves. And again, if they don't do it, we all know where to point the finger this time.
Right. And there's certainly the you know the possibility that you could be elected the lieutenant governor. We could have a governor who is of the opposite party, the Democrat Party, and there could be a split of opinion amongst the two of you, where you go as far as changing the educational system, making it better for the students. Have you thought about that being a possibility where you may not have a Republican governor if you're elected the lieutenant governor?
I'm sorry. So the last part of that question was it again?
Have you thought about what it would be like if you were to be elected the lieutenant governor, but you have somebody in the Democrat Party who will be elected governor, and you have a difference of opinion? How would you go about that?
So it would be the same thing. My goal does not it's not entwined with the actual governor. Now, it would be great if we could align on certain issues. Some of these issues that I'm bringing up has nothing to do left, right. This is issues that this is tabletop issues that all Rhode Islanders face. Every Rhode Islander always sees Rhode Island as you have to know someone to move up in life. People always say it's corrupt. We know that our education is bad. These are things that we want to improve. We want to make sure our kids are going to be our future leaders, and we need to give them the proper education. That is something that should be, at least in my opinion, should be bipartisan. When it comes to the DCYF system, again, we want to give these kids the best hope they possibly can. That's bipartisan. When it comes to our small businesses, which is another part that I'm trying to work with, again, should be bipartisan. Everything that is on my to-do list is all bipartisan.
Certainly those issues are tabletop issues, and the ones that are affect everyday people, no matter what side of the political spectrum you're on. And it sounds to me like you come from a background where maybe you weren't always a Republican. Is that an accurate statement?
So when I was 18, I registered as an unaffiliated, because I always felt as though when both parties started arguing about a specific subject, they both have some good points and some bad points. So I always try to stay in the middle. However, recently I felt as though specifically the past 2 years, the Democratic Party has gone too far left, to the point that it's pulling the Overton window. It's a window where it eventually it's looked at as a clock. If you look at a clock and you look at the right being 3 o'clock and the Democrats being on the 9 o'clock side, the past 2 years, the clock has shifted so that the 12 is now leaning towards the 9. And where I used to be 12 and now am considered 1 in the clock scale. So now where I thought I was in the middle, I am now considered a Republican.
So, sounds like the party left you as opposed to the you left the party. Is that, as the old saying would go?
That would be it. I am also considered. I did a lot of investigation. I mean, a lot of research on this. There is a lot of different types of parties. There's a Libertarian Party, Green Party, but the party that I think I'm actually in right now is called the Ambivalent Right.
Huh, interesting. The
Yes.
ambivalent right.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's the I'm glad to see you're so engaged, put it that way. I'm glad to see you're so engaged, but hopefully the voters are not ambivalent when they're looking at these issues that are coming in. The voters are not uh, just satisfied with the status quo going in, because right now, not just in Rhode Island but nationwide, we have need for serious change on a lot of different issues, including education. And you doing your research and investigating these issues shows that you're serious about this, in my opinion. I think that perhaps comes from your current occupation as a Providence police officer. Uh, is there, do you think that plays any role in what you've
Well,
decided to do?
so one of the things, and this is getting on the philosophical side, is so when it comes to the philosophical side of Democrats versus Republicans tend to be more of self uh, self-reliant, and this is something that I am as an individual. I don't like the idea of having anyone else help me in any situation. When it comes to Democratic side, the way I see it is they want bigger government. They want to rely on the government. And that could be good and bad. If you fail as an individual, you can point your finger at the government. You failed us. Whereas if you're Republican, if you fail in life, you're the one that failed. You have to accept the fact that you did not do the best you can. And that's something that kind of leans towards me. Is I would like the idea of self-reliance, smaller government. And right now, the government is failing the state. And this is something that I want to fix. And as a police officer, I see these issues firsthand. I see homelessness. I see drugs on the street. I see children who are not going to school. 2 days ago, I saw kids, 13-year-olds, just walking on Broad Street during the school day, and I had to take them back to their mother. These are issues that we need to fix, and the only way to fix it is to kind of show Rhode Islanders that we need to be self-reliant. We need choices, and we need to be able to rely on ourselves in order to fix it, not rely on the government of Rhode Island.
Amen to that. I mean, absolutely. Self-reliance, personal responsibility. These are all things that I think that people that are of your mindset would probably agree with. It's easy to point your finger at the government and say, "Hey, you didn't do enough for me," or "Hey, you failed me. You didn't give me this. You didn't give me that." But there's something to be said about um, saying, I'm going to take responsibility for my own life. I'm going to take responsibility for to the extent that I control it. I'm going to take responsibility for doing that. And I think that's a laudable goal on your behalf and a laudable way of living your life to do that. And do you think that's been installed in you from a young age, or is it come from the profession that you're currently in?
So I had a very unique childhood where my mother was on welfare. And when she first let me backtrack. When she first came to America, and she brought us with her, she wasn't on welfare. She actually started a house cleaning business, my mother, and she did amazing. But I don't want to get too much into the story, but that business didn't work out, and she ended up on welfare. And after she got on welfare, she remained on welfare for the rest of the time that she was here, until I ended up in DCYF. I see how bad you can get when you rely on welfare. Welfare is supposed to be a crutch to help you get back on your feet, and that way you can continue to achieve the American dream. um, I didn't see that, and not in my family. Uh, Again, this is something personal to me. It didn't work out, and when you stay in a welfare system for too long, you lose that drive, you lose that hope, you lose that ambition. And this is why I'll never rely on any type of handouts ever again, because I've seen what relying on handouts can do to you.
And you probably see it firsthand in your job, just what that can do to people, kind of put them into that state of despair and kind of lead them down the wrong paths. Uh, what have you found? What have you found most challenging, Jeann, about your campaign so far? If you had to put your finger on something.
So right now, I guess it's getting my name out there. Getting my name out there is pretty tough. When I first started announcing myself, I did my best to alert as much media as possible. And at the moment, I just don't see who. The media hasn't given me enough traction. I get a couple articles here and there. Now that could be a timing issue. Right now, we have the situation down in Ukraine, and the situation down in Ukraine is far more important than my political campaign. Then there is the congressional seat too, which is again much more important than a lieutenant governor position. So when it comes to these particular, when it comes to the political atmosphere, on my part of my campaign is not as important as the other ones. So that would be, is getting my name out there is probably the most important thing.
I certainly understand that. It's somebody who is doesn't sound like you've ever been involved in politics prior to going into this. Similar to myself, had never really been involved in politics. Trying to get yourself to be that household name that people can look to, and people can recognize when they hear your name, hear your speeches, and get to know you a little bit better. Just trying to get that media attention is tough, and that's why I like to have individuals such as yourself on the show, so they can introduce themselves to a wider range of audience, like we have here on the Coalition Radio Network. Not just my show, but all the content that's here on the Coalition Radio Network, so people can hear the voice of someone like you and hear that this is not just a Republican versus Democrat situation. This is a situation of real issues, real people trying to help real reform in this state. And I know for a fact it's not easy running for a public office, and especially a statewide office for somebody who's never done it before. So I can certainly understand where you're coming from on that. What are your plans as far as going forward and trying to get some of that media attention once maybe perhaps once the situation in Ukraine dies down and we start getting closer to the election?
Well, one of the things that I'm working, there's a few things. One is I'm working on an ad, and once I get the ad out there, and we could spread it on all social medias, I think that's going to make a big boost. So that way, people could see me for who I am as an individual. Another tricky part about the state is that it's very democratic, and the they don't the Democratic side does not want to specifically want to give the Republican the time it needs to actually speak to the people. So one thing that I am planning on doing is I'm going to reach out to other Democratic talk shows, or kind of like what you do. And this is including BLM. I believe that if we are going to fix Rhode Island as a whole, I need to contact every coalition, every person, every individual, every group, and maybe trying to find a way to meet them in the middle and hear what they have to say, and actually listen, and maybe even implement some of the things that they want. We all want to be heard. Give me a chance to let me talk, and I'll let you have the chance to talk to me, and maybe we can make it work.
Look at that respectful discourse. You don't see that too much these days in politics. And again, it's something I applaud you on. And I think that we need to see more of that from people who want to be politicians or people who want to hold elective office, and people who currently hold elective office. A little bit more respectful political discourse is what needed, I think, to fix some of these big problems that we're facing in the state of Rhode Island right now. And in that vein, when you say you're reaching out to a lot of those groups that may not necessarily be aligned with the political views you might hold, what do you say to the groups that may have um, some apprehensiveness about interactions with the police? You're a police officer. I'm sure you're gonna get that question at some point.
Yes.
What do you say to those groups that have perhaps had some experiences that have tainted their views towards the police?
All I could say is that I believe that in order to first you need to talk to them and take. There's a lot of groups in Rhode Island that I particularly had a tough time, specifically in June 2020, specifically the riots. And at that time, again, this was a riot that destroyed the city, and it was again BLM and Antifa. They were there. So one of the things that on that particular day, it got a lot of officers upset, angry, and when you talk to another individual, specifically the opposition, you can't talk to the opposition in that kind of state. You need to make sure that you are calm, collected, and then talk to these people and ask them, hey, look, why are you upset? Let's try to figure this thing out. Um, One of the issues that I see is social media, is the news. They When it comes to certain things that happen across the country, it spreads like wildfire. You can have a video of something that is negative when it comes to police in a completely different state, and individuals think that it's happening here. We have a very good police system in Rhode Island. We don't have we have very well trained police officers here. So one of the things that I want to do is when I talk to these individuals is wait, let's take a look at the statistics. Let's take a look at Rhode Island as a whole. Let's talk about the issues that happened in Rhode Island, and let's compare it to other states. And when we talk like that, I believe I could actually inform them that we have it good here. We have good trained police officers, and if you have problems, let's talk about it. Rioting is not the way that makes it worse. Civil discourses.
So let me just for the record, in June or was it June or July of 2020, during the riots downtown, were you one of the officers that was involved in trying to stop those riots?
I was there, yes. So that particular night, we arrested about 65 individuals. I can't go into specifics as to what I did that night because when it comes to being a police officer in a political campaign, there's very limited things I can say. I will say this, that I was there that night, and uh, it was a tough night for the department.
It was a tough night for the entire city. I'd say probably a tough night for the entire state. And I can understand that you can't talk about all those things. Being a former prosecutor myself, I understand there are things that that go along with that have to be held closely to the vest until and if charges come out. Those are those situations that people with more understanding and more discussion will eventually understand. But I just wanted to make sure that I had it right, that you were actually there during those events and had the opportunity to witness them firsthand.
I was there, and I could say I could say for certain that one of the things that was really sad is how BLM talked to me. I'm Hispanic. I'm a migrant from Puerto Rico, and I lived in Providence, specifically the Chad Brown, the Academy Avenue, and Chalkstone area. That was my stomping grounds. I went to George A. West Elementary School. Then I ended up in Perry Middle School, and lastly, I ended up in Health and Science Technology Academy, which is off of Thurbers Avenue in South Providence. Some of these individuals who protested against me, uh, they were friends, they were neighbors, they were some of them were colleagues, some of them were um, other students that I went to school with. it hurts. It hurts to see that the people who were yelling at me, calling me um, ACAB, white supremacist, a lot of
White
dirty words,
supremacist?
white supremacist, even demanding that I get on my knees. It was probably the worst thing I have ever seen a minority doing to another minority. I've never seen that in my entire life. Someone demanding that another person kneel is something so wrong that I still don't understand how this was acceptable. But then again, these young individuals were led by other individuals, adults, and I don't blame the young kids. Sometimes the kids just follow the crowd. I blame the leaders of that particular group. They fail these kids. Now all you see is kids who are under the age of 18. They see police officers as bad people, and it's going to be a long time until we repair that. And in a long story short, I just think that that particular night just showed me how bad things have gotten in Rhode Island.
And it certainly was a night that will live in infamy here in Rhode Island. And I can just tell you that it certainly wasn't helped when, I think there were something like 60 or 70 something people who were arrested, I think that night total. Don't quote me on that number, but it was around that range. And I think perhaps 2 to 3 of them ended up with actual charges going forward against them. And that's not the fault of the Providence Police. That's not the fault of any police department. That was the fault. That was the fault of the Attorney General's office, who basically handed out dismissals after we had our Providence Place Mall broken up, smashed out, windows smashed out, small businesses smashed out, the damage that we did to it, that was done to our city. I think that was a night that hopefully nobody ever forgets, because I'm sure I don't know, do you agree with this statement that
So
we've seen crime go up in the last several years, not
so
just in Providence?
so that particular night, if you look at it's still on YouTube. That particular night, you can see, if you hear the background on some of the videos, you can hear some of the individuals say, "When are we going to break into the mall? I want to get some new shoes." Immediately when they did break into the mall, I mean, we're talking about jewelry stores, shoe shops. There was some other stores there too that got ransacked, and they ran out there with shoes. I mean, you're committing a felony for shoes. It's absurd. These individuals who protested that night, they weren't there for protesting. They were there for destruction and for looting. And no one at that time of night. I think it was like 10 o'clock at night. No one protests at 10 o'clock at night because you know that you're not going to get the attention of the public. You're there for one reason and one reason only. Well, I should say two, is the looting and the destruction.
So you think it was more of a opportunistic type of situation to perhaps uh, take advantage of the fact that it's nighttime, nobody's really out there listening to you. This was an opportunity to kind of wreak havoc in the city.
Absolutely, because that I remember working that shift because it was a 24-hour day for me because I remember actually seeing the sun come up before I left work. That's how much of a chaos it was. And I remember getting these images on my phone, on Facebook, on Twitter, and some other things, where it depict a picture of George Washington in a Washington mask with an AK-47 painted in the Patriots in like a Patriots color scheme, the American flag scheme. My apologies. And they said it's Purge Night. And we sent this information to the sergeant and to some other individuals, so they knew what they were going to do. I also remember, and again, I can't get into specifics of it, but I also remember that they were not just all Providence. It was also individuals from Massachusetts who came down here
Right.
just for that. So the issue is that I believe that the reason why it got so bad is some of the politicians They saw what happened in other states, specifically with George Floyd. They saw that and they completely went with the crowd and immediately say, hey, look, we need to defund the police. And that is a really bad slippery slope, because once you say that you want to defund the police, it it opens the floodgates and tells the citizens of Rhode Island, hey, look, the politicians are now on our side and they don't care about the police, which means we could commit crimes and they're going to either bail us out or they're going to reduce the sentencing, which it happened. Uh, and we could just take advantage of the city because they know that the police officers are now going to be on the back foot.
You get the police officers on the back foot and they have no backing from the prosecutor's office, who are also of the same mindset of some of these politicians who are calling for defunding the police. Now they're using words like, now they're kind of backtracking a little bit, calling it, let's reimagine the police, or let's reallocate resources to different areas of the police department. So I would have to assume that you don't buy into that theory of policing.
No, absolutely not. And I typically say this when I meet individuals. I don't want individuals to blindly back the blue. That is not the proper way. If we do good, give us a thumbs up. If we do something bad, investigate it. I'm not saying don't investigate it. I'm saying absolutely investigate it. But as a citizen and as a politician, you need to, one, be wise, take a step back. I understand that you could be upset about the situation. Take a step back, look at the evidence, and then make your analysis then. Because if you just immediately jump on the situation, it may make the situation worse. For example, there was an incident with an ATV. There was a video of someone videotaping a police cruiser following an ATV. And the way that the camera angle showed, it showed the police cruiser hitting the ATV. It took almost a month until we got other video footage that showed that the police cruiser never hit the ATV. But by then, there was another riot. There was way more protests, and there was more calls for defunding the police, because we did not, as citizens, take the time to take a step back, analyze it, wait until the investigation got done, and then make our choice.
Well, I remember, I know exactly the incident you're talking about, and I know exactly why that got more out of control than it needed to get out of control. I'm certainly not going to sit here and blame the citizens, because they're looking at what their politicians, their leaders, are saying to them. And we certainly had some very irresponsible politicians, not only on our General Assembly, but statewide politicians, who made statements before all the facts and evidence came out to know exactly what had happened in that incident. One of them was the Attorney General. I think he hopefully learned his lesson, because he had to backtrack very quickly when they decided there weren't going to be no criminal charges or any kind of charges brought against the officer that was involved in that particular situation. So this comes with being an elected official, being a politician. You have responsibilities to make sure that when you make public statements like that, particularly in a highly charged emotional situation that was, you have a responsibility to make sure you're not fanning the flames of divisiveness. You have a responsibility to make sure that you're not widening the divide that's already as wide as it can get. So I think that the approach that you're advocating for is one of prudence, taking a step back, making sure we know all the evidence, making sure we know all the facts before we open our mouths and say something that we might regret later. And kind of keeping our responsibility in mind to the people that elected us, to make sure that we are not doing anything that's going to further damage our society. You think that would be a fair assessment of sum up of what you were talking about?
Absolutely. And again, I'm not advocating for people to, again, blindly back the blue. Just give us time, or let the investigation run its course. And I feel as though if we have proper politicians that take their time, do it wisely, and not just jump on the bandwagon of hating the police. I think we can get a lot more done, and we can get the citizens to be happier too, because they will know that the politicians are doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do.
Right. And I think that you've articulated that very, very well. And you're saying, you know, let us do an investigation. If there's a problem, let us do the investigation. Give us time. Not everything's like Law and Order, where everything gets wrapped up in 58 minutes and everybody goes out for a beer after everything is nicely wrapped up and everything is figured out. It doesn't work that way in real life.
Let me just say one more thing. And as you know, Chaz, you know that when it comes to investigations, it takes time.
It
And
does.
I understand that as a citizen who sees these videos, you see a certain perspective of these videos. And sometimes when I look at it, even as a police officer, I would get enraged, like, oh, I can't believe this happened. But then I realized, wait, hold on. There's always two sides of the story. And this is something, again, I learned as a police officer. There's always two sides of the story. And usually when two people talk, the truth is somewhere in the middle. We need to be patient, because again, investigations takes months, sometimes years, and it's frustrating, but we have to be patient.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I'm sure I'll be saying the same thing on the campaign trail going forward, because that's going to be part of my job should I be elected Attorney General, is that we have to have all the facts. We have to be patient. We have to do a thorough investigation, because we have to look at the facts and the law as we know it and apply it to each individual situation. And that doesn't happen overnight. Doesn't happen over usually a period of a week. Sometimes it can take several years before you can finish an investigation. And I know people want immediate responses to everything right away, and it doesn't always happen that way, and people get frustrated. But that's where it comes back to having responsible people in positions of leadership, responsible people as our elected leaders, and responsible people making statements that are going to make sure that people understand something's going on. We are investigating it, and we are going to come back with something that we can all explain to you how we came to the results of that investigation. So I certainly understand where you're coming from, and I certainly think that the people who are watching this and who will be watching this and the replays will have a better idea of how this process works.
No,
So
I completely agree.
yeah, absolutely. John, is there anything else you'd like to tell us about your candidacy, how people can reach you, how people can reach out to help you, and anything else that you think that we should all know about you?
So, I mean, I have a few things to say. I know that we touched on law enforcement. That is a huge thing. But again, the most important thing is to let's give the people choices and give these and just improve the social services that we have. But aside from that, we can't afford social services, good social services, without a good economy. And another thing that I am working on is our small business environment. We have high taxes for these small businesses. These small businesses got crushed during COVID. So we need to make sure, and I know that's a hot topic issue right now, but every time a politician comes into office, they say they're going to fix the small business, and it never gets done. This time, if I get elected, it will get done. We're going to make places like Broad Street, which is a Hispanic Hispanic economic zone. We're going to make that into like a Federal Hill. When I shop at Federal Hill, it's inviting. There is no drugs on the streets. There's no homelessness. The streets are clean. I walk down, I listen to music. I can smell the food. It's just inviting for me when I go down Broad Street. But when you go down, I'm sorry, now when you go down Federal Hill, but when you go down Broad Street, you don't get that type of environment. And I think that's wrong. I want Broad Street and others like it to be a profitable and a good place for people to shop. And not just Broad Street, but other, I want there to be like a Spanish, I want there to be like an African American district where it's also inviting. People just want to go. It will be amazing to see all these little districts in Rhode Island, all these different minorities, different ethnic group, just sprout out and have like, you can be like, I want to eat African, or I want to eat Portuguese, and we go to these districts and enjoy ourselves. But we can't do that with the way it is now. Another thing that I want to say is, I'm a very moderate Republican, because I like to listen to both sides, and usually both people have this type of people are usually right on both sides. But the Republican Party is right now advocating for people's choice for school, people's choice for medical freedoms. The Republican Party, as it is right now, we're for capitalism. We are for personal responsibility. We want freedom of speech. We want you to have your 2A. We don't want to defund the police, and we are for rule of law. We want individuals to be able to feel safe in their neighborhoods. Last year, there was almost record murder rates in the state. We got to fix that. We got to turn it around. And lastly, I'd like to say that I am not going to be your next politician. As I always been, your public servant. So please support me. Go online, go to my website, which is lugo4ltgov.com. You can see me on Facebook. I'm also on Twitter. So any of that, feel free to support me as well by volunteer or even some financial support.
Excellent. And I love the way you put that, because it's one of the lines I use in my speech, is that I'm not running to be a politician, I'm running to be a public servant. And I think that's something that a lot of people are missing. It's become too much of a career for many politicians, being up there for a long, long time. They forget where they come from, they forget who they work for, and they forget what purpose they're serving. So I'm glad to hear that from you, John. And I think that message will take you a long way going forward. And I really appreciate you coming on here and telling everybody here on the Coalition Radio Network just about who you are, what you're about, what you want to do. It sounds like you've researched your plans as to how you're going to implement these things and what you're going to do if you become our next lieutenant governor. And I certainly wish you the best of luck. I know you have a primary in the GOP primary, so I certainly wish you the best of luck in that. I certainly want to say that I think you made an impressive impression here for myself, not only myself, but for everybody watching here, just being able to answer the questions on the spot, back and forth. We didn't go over this in advance. We didn't talk about any of these topics or what we were going to say. So, it's good for you. And I think you're going to have a great time on the campaign trail. And so thank you again for joining us here tonight on Chaz Calenda, Attorney at Law.
Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
And absolutely. And as everybody knows, you can always watch Chaz Calenda, Attorney at Law, here on the Coalition Radio Network, Wednesday nights around 8:30 at night. Chaz Calenda, Attorney at Law. That's me. I work at the law firm of Inman and Torgy. It's 1500 Nooseneck Hill Road in Coventry, Rhode Island. You can reach me at 401-823-9200 if you need legal assistance. I'm also a candidate to be the Rhode Island Attorney General. And I'm running on that platform of being a public servant as opposed to being a politician and keeping the rule of law in place here in Rhode Island. If you want to find out more about that information, you can also find me on my website at CHAS, CHAS4AG.com. Like John, I'm also on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and you can find out a lot more about me on those platforms as well. Thank you, everybody here on the Coalition Radio Network, for joining us for another episode of Chaz Calenda, Attorney at Law. I look forward to making some important announcements on some other guests that are going to be showing up here on the show in the upcoming weeks and months, and we'll be letting you know when that comes out. So for now, we say good night, enjoy your Wednesday night, and we'll see you on the next episode.